And one thing that stands out to me is everyone in the organization was trained on sales, not just the sales team, and everyone was getting also remunerated based on bringing in additional sales.
I think more organizations would thrive if they simply gave their team opportunities to sell the product. And it comes from a place of, I really care about you. I want you to do well. I want you to improve. It doesn't really matter what you're selling. It has to come from that place of, I really do care about you. This really is going to solve your problem. My passion is coming from a place of getting you to the next level.
Angelina, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Aaron. This is so exciting to be here.
I love the fact that you've jumped on a Sunday evening, which is impressive. We're coming across here. Whereabouts in the US? Are you still in Miami?
Oh my gosh, no. I went from Miami to Atlanta, and now I am back in Los Angeles, where I feel at home and connected. So I'm very excited. I just got back here probably 2 months ago now.
Amazing. To kick it all off, I thought it'd be nice to start with, how did your professional journey get started?
Well, after I finished college, I realized that I was not fluent in Spanish, which is what I had studied. So I moved to Spain and I taught English as a foreign language for a couple of years. I ended up working at a company called Fujitsu. They make the ATM machines. And I worked at a place called Banco Santander, which was a big Spanish bank. And then I taught kids in the evening. So it was quite an experience. And then I got back to the United States and I moved to Chicago, and I had culture shock, believe it or not. It's like, wait a minute, this is my country. This should be easy to get acclimated. But now it was time for me to find a professional position at home. And I ended up in training because that's what I had been doing, although I didn't even know that was like a career. So I ended up training at a marketing company, and then they would send me all over. And that's kind of how I started my career.
Amazing. Now, we had our first encounter 9 years ago, which is crazy. Do you remember that in Miami?
Yes, absolutely. So I had been in Los Angeles for a while, and I was here to get into the music industry and acting, even though I was training by day. So I left. I just kind of, I don't want to say I gave up, but I was fed up. And I moved to Miami. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to wait a little while before I look for a job. But, you know, after a couple of cocktails from the night I got there, the next day I'm like, oh my gosh, I need a job. I need to find something. So I ended up going to this job agency, and they placed me in this office. And they said, yeah, the guy's a trainer and he's from LA. I'm like, I was a trainer. I'm from LA. And his name was Grant Cardone, and I'd never heard of him before. And they hired me to be an account manager. And then I was there and realizing, oh my gosh, I realized why I didn't make it in the music industry, because I didn't view myself like a product. And I met you. You came in. Well, not exactly the same moment, but you came in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to meet amazing people like Aaron, and you were so sweet, and we connected, and I wanted to make sure we stayed in touch. And when I left his office, I think I tracked you down on LinkedIn, and that's where we stayed connected.
What I remember, I'm pretty sure you're the very first person in the whole organization that greeted myself and Jack when we came into the office. So you were my very first in-person connection to the Grant Cardone organization. I just remember you had this beautiful energy. You were super bubbly and light. So it's unusual to remember a first encounter with someone, but I certainly remember ours.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, I was right there in the front with 20 different jobs that most people did not know about while I was sitting there. But that was the best part of the job, getting to meet new people who were making amazing, exciting things happen, for sure.
What did you learn from Grant while you were working there?
What didn't I learn from Grant? It's like I had to tell myself, okay, you got to keep this short. I learned so much because I had been a trainer and I would look at his materials and I thought, wow, I never thought of going on my own and doing what he's doing. But really, he was really honest about everything and what he presented. Like, it takes a lot of hard work, and sometimes you've got to do what you hate to be great. And I'm like, finally, someone is saying this, because a lot of the things that you have to do, especially when you're a business owner, aren't the things that are fun. They aren't the things that make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. I was just glad to have someone else validate that. There was one lesson I didn't learn, but we'll get to that a little later. I also knew I needed to master how to sell. I started my career actually as a sales trainer. I was a sales trainer for Allstate, for American Express, for Citigroup. These are major corporations, but they never paid me or gave me a bonus based on the sales that were generated after I did the training. I always knew I did a great job, and they'd say, oh yeah, we're making so much more money. And I thought, oh great, I did my job. But it didn't show up in my paycheck. So I never made that connection until I was in his office. And by the time I left, even though I wasn't on the sales team, I was one of the top 10 salespeople because I knew I had to master that skill.
That's really important for the personal brand audience that into today, that ability to sell. And one thing that stands out to me is everyone in the organization was trained on sales, not just the sales team, anyone that is in any role in the company, and everyone was getting also remunerated based on bringing in additional sales. So
right.
Even though it's slightly off track, tell me a little bit about how Grant approached that with the entire team.
Sure. Basically, he said everyone was allowed to sell his product. Now, that may not have been your role. And so oftentimes it might have been just selling the books or the wristbands, not necessarily selling the university, his main product, but that's how you were going to earn more income if you were there. You had to sell. I don't know what the ratio is now as far as people who sell, but he never held that back as an opportunity. I think more organizations would thrive if they simply gave their team opportunities to sell the product. You get into a place where you're not selling. You really believe what that thing is going to be able to do for people. And it comes from a place of, I really care about you. I want you to do well. I want you to improve. And this is going to really solve your problem. And I believe it. There were people who would call the office and tell me, I basically spoke to several people here to see who would be the best one to convince me. And I'm like, oh, I won the prize. I said, it's because I believe in what this is. You need to make more money, and this is absolutely going to help you do it. And I'm not here to try and convince you. I'm not going to waste your time or mine. If you're not ready to make more money, that's totally fine. You've got my email, and when you're ready, we'll talk about it. So that is how I would approach it. And it doesn't really matter what you're selling. It has to come from that place of, I really do care about you. This really is going to solve your problem. My passion is coming from a place of getting you to the next level. It is not about what may happen to my bank account. It's really, really about you, because one of my purposes is I really love helping people. I mean, that's why I was able to thrive, because they didn't stop me from coaching people on the phone. I was coaching business owners at one point, and I knew his material so well. It was like some kind of weird magic. I knew exactly what to say. Even if I hadn't been in that industry, I could immediately figure out what the missing piece was in that person's business and tell them what they needed to do. But my goal, of course, but there is something else, this product that is going to allow you to train on sales and get more confident about what it is that you're doing, because half of it could just be you don't really believe in what you're offering, and you're going to lose with that every single time. You've got to have a passion about what it is that you're going to be able to do for people. That is what I took from it. And it took me a while to get there about what I was personally offering the public. But once I was able to see, oh, I am solving problems in a different way, but it still meets a very important need that needs to be met for people to move forward, to get what they want, to have magical, wonderful things happen. I had a lot of magical things happen before I actually got to his office. So I always also kept that in mind as well, which is why you had asked me, what was the vibe there? And I said, oh, don't ask me that question, because someone coming from Idaho into his office would have had a very different experience. But I came from Hollywood, and because I was part of the Recording Academy, I got invited to premieres, and I got to meet very exciting, famous people. And there was one time I was at a club, and The Rock was like 2 feet away from me. I could have touched him, but I was interested in someone else, and I was chasing them. I'm like, oh, okay, he's there, oh, he's tall, whatever. So I wasn't as excited perhaps as someone else when I just, came from this other environment where I have returned.
I think there's a couple of takeaways for anyone that's listening. Number one is look at the way that Angelina talks about selling. There's an alignment to purpose and helping people, and that's a really important mindset shift for sales. The other one was that everyone in the organization was trained on sales. So if you are a business owner, don't just reserve that for yourself or for anyone that is in the sales role. Train your entire team and organization to ask questions that can drive towards sales, and you'll be able to create so many more opportunities for sales in your business. So thank you so much for sharing that. We'll circle back a little bit to what I wanted to ask you about. So tell me a little bit about your vocalist background.
So I moved to Los Angeles to sing, and everybody has that dream that you're going to get that magical record deal. And that doesn't necessarily happen. It does happen for some, and then their hearts are broken when the record label decides, you know what, we're not actually going to put it out. But so much has changed in the industry. So I ended up in the process, you see that there's this golden carrot, and you want to get as close to it as you can. But one of the things that I didn't appreciate was all of the things that I was able to do. I was able to join the Recording Academy. Very few individual people who are not linked to a label actually do that. I recorded 200 songs through a company. No, I'm sorry, it was like 113, but then 100 other songs that I recorded for myself and for other people. And people could make a request, and I was the bilingual vocalist. Someone did a music video from, I think they were in Israel, and they had someone dancing and they're lip syncing my voice, and they sent me the clip of the video. It was fascinating. I did recordings for people all over the world. I went to Norway to sing in a songwriting workshop. I had a friend who did house music, so I did a few house tracks, and then he got them on the Billboard house chart in the UK. But I always was like, yeah, whatever. I never really took stock in the accomplishments that I did have. I heard myself on the radio in Los Angeles. I mean, that's the most exciting thing when you're driving, like, I just wasn't appreciative of all of the magical things that I got to do. But I'm back here now, and I plan on singing again and putting out more music. And I'm excited because that's a passion of mine that I have to keep going. And that Grammy is still somewhere in the future.
I can sense there's some Grammy vibes coming your way. So on that note, how did you discover your purpose?
Well, when the singing thing did not work out as I wanted it to, I had to really dig deep and wonder, why didn't it it happened. I just wanted to sing. You've got to look back, and I do believe in God and a higher power, and you have to look at what is the plan. If I'm working in his office and learning all these things and meeting all of these amazing people, and I decided, you know what, this must mean this is a bigger part of my purpose. Being able to, I was already a corporate trainer. I already created courses. I was already a facilitator. I'd been doing that for a number of years, and just knowing, wow, I need to start creating courses. I need to start building some kind of business, and it is not necessarily going to be music related, but all of it comes back around to helping people and making them feel good about themselves. You know, I think about Beyonce. I think she's absolutely phenomenal, and she is very moving to a stage when she's on stage. But if she had the talent of being able to coach people, help them with their confidence, self-esteem, get over childhood traumas, would she do it? Would she? And I realized I wouldn't have. I would like, let me just keep singing. But if my purpose is really to help other people, it doesn't mean that I can't sing. It just means that I have an obligation to also serve people in this other way. And the best part about that is I can make a much greater impact this way than if I were just singing a song.
I love how you've gone down many paths, and you've clearly got these incredible skill sets and things that you're passionate about, but then you've got this way that you want to make people feel or make their lives better, and you've managed to interchange them all into the direction that you're in now. So I think that's a really important message for anyone listening. I think you start to discover your purpose by getting out into the world and doing things, and understand that you can bring different elements together, and you will evolve it as you go. Because I'm sure when you started out, your purpose was probably down the singing path, and now it's very much towards the service path. Is that right?
Yes. And I think I'll tell you another little story. I was working on music, and I decided to create some children's music. And I knew it wasn't going to get out on its own. And I had a friend say, oh, well, I'll do the music videos for you, but I have to have a script. You know, it's very, I've got to have a script. I've got to have a script. I'm like, okay, I'll write a script. So I ended up writing a pilot, and I wrote 3 pilots, and I put it together, and I was ready to pitch it. And I went to Cannes. Is it Cannes or Cannes? I always get that confused. I went to Cannes to pitch it at a festival called MIPCOM, and Malala's father was speaking. Malala is the woman who was from Afghanistan. She was shot. She lived. She had this gigantic message. And I heard him speak, and he said, you know, I'm here at this television and film type of conference because you are the ones who can make a difference in the world. If we do not provide education to young people, it doesn't mean that they're just going to be hanging out and poor. They will be trained to be soldiers. They will be trained to be enemies of nations. So your impact is so much greater than just creating content for TV. And that moved me so greatly. Like, I could create content for children around the world and educate them and give them a sense of life and purpose that would enable them to continue their education and not focus on the only alternative being war, military, survival. That was a profound moment for me. And then, 2 minutes later, now I'm in Miami, seeing how this could be possible. One of the web guys there told me, I could build this for you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you could build a platform where I could have kids programming. Oh my gosh, I need to pick that back up again. But I'm just saying that to reiterate that there is this much greater purpose that you might not be able to see yet. If you're willing to walk the walk, if you're willing to take the steps, if you're willing to take the risks and allow your passion to lead you, because it was my passion for music that led me to create the show, that led me to France, that led me to being able to see this man live. All of this came together to create my new vision for my life. New visions, like there are probably more than one, but
I love that. I love that. And on that journey, what hard lessons have you learned about marketing and branding?
Well, I think people or business owners need to realize you're probably not Coca-Cola. Okay. So when you put your stuff out, no one is going to recognize your stuff. Someone has to give life to it. Someone has to push it. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm the one who's got to push it. I have to be the face of my product. I wanted to hide. I'm like, oh no, let me just put it out. No, it does not work that way. You've got to prepare yourself to be the face and the name of your product so that more people can see it. And then you have to be aggressive. So that was a hard lesson. I mean, you'd think I would have learned it by watching this man, but no. I still somehow thought I could be Coca-Cola and just put my stuff out there. Absolutely not. You've got to be, it's one of those things like maybe that's one of the things you hate and you don't want to do it. But if you want to be successful in business, it is absolutely necessary. And the bigger picture here is, and I've had to remind myself of this many times, it's not about you. It's not about you. I had a friend tell me, you could be saving lives right now. People will say, I held on. I had hope because of you. It's a responsibility. It's bigger than you think it may be. It's not just about you getting whatever that thing is out. It's about being able to do something for someone, opening up someone else's dreams because you stepped forward.
That's so powerful. And that's been one of the messages that has been circled back to by myself, because it's true. When you start out, there's not a lot of people watching or paying attention, and you have to be the one that's willing to drive it. And that's what Build Your Personal Brand is about. And without all those elements and that purpose behind it, it's so easy to quit and to not continue on that path. So I'm really glad that we share that same mindset around that. So what made you decide to create a course on how to write a romance novel?
Well, I actually have a master's degree in literature first. And then I thought, I really want to learn how to write a romance. And I stumbled across a list of questions that you would ask your character. And I realized, oh my gosh, I've never asked myself these questions. Maybe I should ask myself these questions first. Just really deep personal questions. And so I created a romance writing course, and people said, oh, well, you're going to teach people how to write. It's like, well, this course isn't just about teaching women how to write a romance. It's really about a transformation and asking yourself this list that I've curated of like 200 questions that you've never asked yourself before, so you can have a better understanding of who you are. Now, of course, I do love romances, and that is part of it, but it's also a part of discovery, because sometimes we make the same mistakes over and over again, and we don't know why, or we make certain decisions that are coming from our childhood, or we might have certain quirks or little interesting things about ourselves, or even who we attract into our lives. And this is an opportunity to break all of that down and discover, who are you and who do you want to be and what do you want? And what would you want your partner to be like? And if you already have a partner, what is it that needs to evolve and grow with that partnership in order for it to be the best possible and in order for it to be successful? And success being you're both happy, you get along well, it's a great time, you understand each other, there's compassion, all of that. And I think it was hard for me to grasp, wow, is it really a need to write a romance? Maybe that in and of itself is not, but there is a need to know who you are and what you want and what is going to make you happy, and especially in a loving, fulfilling relationship.
Amazing. And what are some tips and tricks to write and self-publish a book? I know a lot of people that would listen to this podcast would have contemplated going down that route and writing a book, but there's so much that goes into getting one out. So do you have any tips for them to write and also get it self-published?
So, first, you have to be really committed and dedicated to working on the book, to actually writing the book, because it does take a lot of time. And that's okay. Part of it should be cathartic and enjoyable. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to sit down and write and it's hard. Secondly, there are a lot of self-published books out there. Find an editor, a real editor, so that you can improve upon what's there and make sure it's not even just about mistakes, but make sure it makes sense and that it's going to be enjoyable. I'm sorry to say I've read quite a few not so great self-published books, but handed it to someone else to make sure that it was better. That is probably the hardest part. If you're able to write the entire manuscript, you're able to get it edited, then other people can be hired for the rest, for the formatting, for the cover, and getting it onto Amazon is a fairly easy process. It's really just the writing. And I want to answer the question that I'm sure most people have nowadays with AI. I could just have AI write the book. Yes, but will it be a good book? Will it be a book that people want to read? AI is great at form letters that have to do with particular topics, but it's never going to have your individual, unique voice. It's never going to be able to tell the stories of what happened to you in your life or what you've created. It's not very creative. And I just want to point out, AI is wrong about information 25% of the time. So if you're writing a nonfiction book, you don't want to rely on something that is going to give you wrong information. And if you're writing a fiction book, you want it to be as creative as possible. That's why someone's going to read the book from you, because keep in mind, there are millions of books already out there. What makes yours special? And the more people who use AI and ChatGPT to write books, there is going to be a greater need for people who actually, they write themselves and they are original. Most authors write in a particular voice, and you can hear that voice, just like our own individual voices. And AI is one voice. And I'm not saying don't use it at all. It definitely can improve sentence structure. It can correct certain things. If you're not paying for it, remember, whatever you put in there it's access. It's given to the whole universe. But it's a great tool, but you also don't get the joy of the writing. When I wrote my novel, it was during COVID, and it was such a wonderful experience to be able to leave mentally, because I based my story in Los Angeles, but I was sitting in Marietta, Georgia at the time, staring out the window, looking at a forest, but I could imagine myself at an ocean. I could really put myself there and get that amazing, beautiful experience. And I can't tell you how heartwarming it's been for me to physically be able to go to those places now that I'm back here and remember what I wrote. And it's like, oh my gosh, I wrote about you. I wrote about your restaurant in my book, and showing someone the book and they're like, oh, thank you. Wow, I'm in the book. You want to feel good. That's why part of the reason you're doing it, part of the joy is knowing that it came from you, that it came from your soul and your experience. So tips are: worry about getting it done. Schedule time. I'm going to work and write 5 hours a week. It's amazing what you can get done if you just schedule the time out. Be kind to yourself. Be dedicated. There was a man who won the Academy Award, and he said, I give myself a little procrastination time. I schedule my procrastination from 9 o'clock till 10 o'clock in the morning, and then at 10 I get to work. So you have to create ways to kind of trick yourself in to doing it. And it doesn't have to be perfect the first time around. Give yourself grace as you're writing, and be proud of yourself for getting through the first chapter, the third chapter, the 10th chapter. It's like, yes, I did it. I'm going to go and celebrate. Celebrate all of your successes along the journey of writing your book.
And I think the point around the AI is so important, especially if you're writing as yourself. No one can emulate you, the authentic version of you, whereas AI can emulate whatever's in the learning machine. And the way that you write something that stands out and separates from the noise is when it's truly authentic and it can't be duplicated. So I'm really, really glad you shared that. And on that note, with so many opportunities to take shortcuts and to use tools like AI, what are some ways that people that want to develop their craft, how can they embrace writing and how can they get better at it and not lean into the shortcuts that a lot of other people might take going down the path of writing?
Well, interestingly enough, reading. Reading will help you define your voice. And when reading, just being aware of someone else's style and how they're writing and what is their tone and using your own. There are software programs, I think with the Mac, you can press a key and you can just talk into a microphone and speak your book. And then you'll have a better idea of voice. If you're doing fiction, you want to listen to conversations and how you can distinguish personalities, distinguish between how men speak and how women speak. It's not the same. ChatGPT is going to make it all the same. It's a woman, man, I don't know. It's a human. Everybody says the same thing. So just having an awareness and reading and allowing your voice, your writing voice, to just develop. You're unique. Let it shine and see what happens. That's the exciting part.
Yeah. And if you've ever wanted to go down the path of writing your own book, Angelina's there to support you in the corner. So if someone's wanting to explore that path further, how can they get in touch? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, the Angelina Sol, all one word. I'm on Facebook, Angelina Sol, that's SOL. I'm on Instagram. I think Instagram, it's welcome to your greatness. That might be confusing, but LinkedIn is probably the easiest way because I'm like the second person who pops up on LinkedIn. And I have my romance writing course that's going to be a group course for women. And then I'm also taking clients who want to work with me on a one-on-one basis because I know how difficult it is to get through the book. So we'd be working one-on-one an hour every single week. And I'd be looking at your progress, making sure that you were moving forward and editing the book along the way as well and detecting that ChatGPT. No, I'm kidding. But from start to finish, starting your book process, even if you don't know what it is right now, to the end, I actually publish the books and put them together because if you're not a technical person and let's say you wanted to sing a song, you don't really want to learn all the software. You just want to go in and sing. And I know most people just want to write. They don't want to have to figure out how do I format in this Adobe program. It's a lot. And just focus on the writing. And if you join me, and if you want me to help you, that's all you will have to worry about is the writing.
I love that. And I'll put links to everything you mentioned in the description below. So if you want to make contact with Angelina, just jump on those links. And I think that's really important. What Angelina is saying here, we talk about the who, not how. You just stay in your lane of creativity and you can let go of all the technical side, all the parts that don't lift your spirits up and give it to someone that's an expert in that space. So you can just work on the product, which is the writing and your magic flowing through, and leverage someone else who has all the other resources for you to make it a process that's enjoyable and one that you can repeat again and again. So make sure you reach out to Angelina if you've even contemplated going down the path of writing, because I can vouch for her. And she's also had the experience of working with some of the most powerful names in the world and learning side by side from them. So you're not going to get a better hybrid relationship from someone that has the writing gifts, is an author herself, but also has spent time selling and promoting, which is going to be the next part once your book is ready to share with the rest of the world. So get in touch with Angelina.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And if you're just tuning into the show and you're not following, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can catch all the new episodes on demand. Thanks again, Angelina.
Thank you, Aaron. You're such a doll. Thank you so much.